Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Crypto News Podcast. We're buzzing as always. And while I'm recording tonight, my lovely guest is a whopping 16 hours ahead of me. Always a little trippy when I'm recording at 5 p.m. Eastern time. And my guest, it's 9 a.m. for him. Absolute banana lands. And I'm super pumped to have this guy on. Today we have Dr. Mark van Rijmenam, the digital speaker, also known as the digital speaker. He's a leading future tech strategist who thinks about how tech changes organizations, society, and the metaverse. Mark is an international keynote speaker, 4 times author, craziness, congrats on that, and entrepreneur. And he founded Datafloq and the author of the book on the metaverse, Step into the Metaverse, How the Immersive Internet Will Unlock a $1 trillion social economy. Mark has also done much more, and we will get into that. However, without further ado, I'm very pumped to have Dr. Mark van Rijmenam on the Crypto News Podcast. Mark, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, Matt. It's great to be here. And yeah, it's always a bit crazy dialing in from the future. It's already the next day here. So it's always, it still blows my mind how that works.
Trippy. It always trips me out, and truly a treat to have you on. You and I, before the show, we were talking a little bit about GPT-3. I think we're both full-on addicts here. And I know it's very sort of cliche for the tech bros, if you will, to be, drooling and having so much fun with GPT-3 and more specifically the new chatbot that came out. But man, what a fun week it's been. Like how much fun have you had playing around with this thing?
Oh, I have had so much fun, and I'm working on something really cool that I can't share too much about it yet. But it's ChatGPT is just insane. I think I've been playing around for a couple of days nonstop. I think it achieved 1 million users in like 5 days or so, which shows how insane it is. It's fantastic technology. You can have ask questions and get detailed answers. I've seen posts on LinkedIn. People say this is the end of Google. This is the end of Stack Overflow. This is the end of any other platform, and this is based on I think GPT-3 or even I think maybe 3.5. I read somewhere, and this hasn't even GPT-4 hasn't even arrived, which they expect in the next couple of months. So yeah, if you haven't checked out ChatGPT, please do so, because it's absolutely insane what you can do, the conversations that you can have, the answer that you can get back if you ask a question. It's astonishing.
Any crypto specific use cases that you found or at least played around with yet? Besides the obvious, like you're a crypto company and you want to do digital ads and you can get, GPT-3, the OpenAI chatbot to write you a beautiful ad, or if you're a founder and you want a blog post or you want a tweet or a LinkedIn post, so on and so forth. Anything more niche that perhaps you found that you can tell us? Because I know you got a bunch of stuff on the back burner that you're working on right now, but is there anything you can tell us that is sort of crypto specific regarding to AI?
I haven't tried it out, to be honest. I think I just didn't have the time yet. I've asked a few questions around the metaverse, and it's very good at giving the answers on that. Also asked questions about what's going to happen in 10, 20, 30 years from now when it comes to the metaverse. In my book, I write about brain-computer interfaces, and it pretty much nailed that. ChatGPT, the answer gave back to me in terms of what's going to happen in the next 20, 30 years were I think pretty interesting to read. So I haven't specifically played around with asking it for financial advice on which crypto to invest in. I'm not sure if that will work, but I guess everyone can just try it out.
What about your name? That's something that, and not your last name, but your last name is very interesting as well. And I believe you told me it was Dutch before the show. It is Dutch, correct?
It is correct, yeah.
Awesome. And the digital speaker, where did that come from?
Sure. So I've been doing keynotes for over a decade, helping Fortune 500 companies, speaking at global events. And obviously, when the pandemic hit, my calendar just got emptied, which was quite frustrating. But obviously I had to reinvent myself. So I thought, why don't I practice what I preach? So I digitally transformed myself and came up with the brand, The Digital Speaker, and made myself available to speak as an avatar, as a hologram, or a combination of both. That was 3 years ago. And since then, I've explored this further. I'm currently building a digital twin of myself because I really, I like to not only talk about this kind of stuff, but actually also doing this kind of stuff to better understand what the impact of all these new technologies are. So I'm building a digital twin. And at some point, you can have a conversation with me that sounds like me, moves like me, talks like me, looks like me, and I can just do something else. Go lie on the beach here in Sydney or so. I'm not sure. I'll set my digital twin to work. But that's where it came from the pandemic, reinventing myself, digitally transforming myself, the digital speaker was born.
Absolute craziness, man. Oh man. And back in the day when you were moving and grooving and when you were, being flown out to these massive events and speaking in front of thousands of people, any sort of non-obvious under the table tips or piece of advice that you'd give on public speaking? And I'll start, the best one I ever got, I want to say it was from Naval Ravikant, and his whole thing was, he gave 2 tips. He's like, 1, pretend you're speaking to yourself in the shower. And again, that is great public speaking, right? When you're really just having a dialogue with yourself. And he said, secondly, look above everyone else. Don't make eye contact with anyone. He said, because then everyone will sort of think that you're looking at them and it all just works out. But what tips or pieces of advice do you have for anyone who's public speaking in front of thousands of people?
That's interesting because I would disagree with the last one. Because I would say that try to pick 2 or 3 people in the audience and look them into the eyes. Because then
I've heard that one too, yeah.
You get a better
Personal
connection. You get also a better feeling of how people respond to you, to what you're saying, and they feel special because they know that you're looking them in the eyes. So that's one thing. The other thing is if you have to deliver a keynote for a very large group, or you're not very confident about your speaking, or it's a new speaking a new talk that you need to give, practice it in your room wherever you are, and pretend as if you are delivering your keynote in front of 1,000 people already. Really imagine yourself that there's 1,000 people sitting in front of you, because our brains cannot make the difference between imagination and real. If you do that 3 times, and then the next day you're actually standing on that stage in front of 1,000 people, to your brain it is, I've already done this 3 times, nothing to worry about, and then it will just work out smoothly.
And that works for you. It's like, no weird exercises, no like Wolf of Wall Street, hymns or anything. Just get in the zone and boom, that's it.
Just get in the zone, just in front of getting on stage. If you're breathing exercises, and then off you go. And then finding your bearings in the first minute, and then deliver an awesome keynote. And in the end, delivering keynotes is just entertainment. You are an entertainer. You're entertaining people, but you're trying to entertain in a way that gives them some insights. I love doing it. I'm very glad that the pandemic is over from that perspective. It gives me out to fly again. I've been to some great locations already this year, and it's just fantastic to do. It's a wonderful job. It's a very privileged job to have.
Another thing that I'm so interested in is sort of the trajectory between almost starting out and speaking for free and then literally being a keynote speaker and getting paid thousands of dollars. You hear these stories all the time where, ex-political figures or ex-Fortune 500 CEOs are getting paid a pretty large 5-figure sum, sometimes 6 figs to literally speak for an hour, sometimes, 5 figs for a 25, 30-minute keynote. Like, walk me through your trajectory from most likely speaking for free to, getting paid a shit ton of money to speak. That must have been a pretty cool, roadmap.
Yeah, well, whenever they fly me over, it's still an amazing experience. So, that's always, I always really, really enjoy it. But it's quite funny how it started, because I started about a decade ago, and at that time I was starting a new company, which was the predecessor of what's now called Datafloq, and it was a platform around big data, because I thought big data is going to be hot. So this was 2012. But I didn't really have much understanding of big data myself. So I thought, well, I'm going to teach myself. Learn, write about it, and publish it online. I was living in the Netherlands at the time, and within a month and a half, I was asked to be a keynote speaker at an event. Being the expert on big data, which I thought was absolutely ridiculous. But and then
you've been working on this for 6 weeks.
Yeah, it's really pretty insane, yeah. And in the land of the blind, the one-eyed man is king, as they say. It's a saying in Dutch. And then I thought, I might as well ask money for it. So I straight up asked money for my first keynote, and they said yes. And I never looked back. And since then, of course, my figure has expanded. But what people often forget is that people think, you get 5-6 figure fee for 30 minutes, 60 minutes talk, but that's not really it. It's what the work that you've done for the past decade to get to
years
that stage.
Of practice.
that's what's the value in there. I spent weeks without getting paid. And then having a keynote it makes up for that. So it's I think that's really important to be aware of, that people see those figures, but then forget all the hard work that's done, all the research, all the things, all the investments that you make, also the travel. It takes especially from Australia, I have a flight to Europe or America. It takes me 3 to 5 days. That's all things that needs to be incorporated. So people think often, oh, that's a ridiculous amount of money for half an hour. Yes, it is a lot of money for half an hour, but there's so much happening on the back to make that happen.
Well said. What are the biggest differences, the non-obvious ones, between doing a Zoom keynote or doing an in-person keynote? Is there any different prep? Is there any, again, I'm talking non-obvious stuff. Obviously, everyone would be like, good lighting, good audio, make sure you look good. The whole 9 yards. But is there anything that you wish you knew 3 years ago when you started doing all the virtual keynotes?
No, I think my challenge with virtual keynotes is that you don't have that connection that you can have with an in-person keynote, which I think therefore one of the reasons why I hope that events in the metaverse or so-called phygital events will be much better, because then you can at least have a two-way connection where you can, just like in the real world, you can look people into the eyes and you can understand what people think about whenever you're talking. And if I do a Zoom or Teams call, I just see my screen. I don't see the other audience. I have no idea how they respond, and that's, I think, very annoying.
Yeah, it's so true. And everyone's on mute as well, so you literally you know what I mean. Yeah. You crack a joke, you don't even know if anyone's laughing.
No, you have no idea, which is quite frustrating. And then you assume that people are laughing, and you just continue on.
Yeah, it is. It's true. It's very robotic. Not a lot of emotional pull in there.
No.
Interesting. Mark, you are huge on the metaverse. You really went all in a couple of years ago, and your most recent book, Step into the Metaverse, which we'll get into later on. But what tickled your fancy so much about the metaverse? Why did you decide to go all in? And why the metaverse in particular? Because a lot of people in blockchain and crypto do a whole lot of things, right? Yes, you have founders who just sort of hone in and specialize on one niche aspect of the industry. You chose the metaverse. Why is that? Why do you love it so much?
Well, I think because the metaverse is really the convergence of different technologies that I've been involved in over the past decade. It's big data, it's blockchain, it's AI, it's VR, it's AR. It really brings everything together, and I think that is what I think is really, really interesting. And it's also for me the metaverse is not Web3. The metaverse is not gaming. The metaverse is not virtual reality. It can be all of them together, but it's not them individually. And I think that's a very important distinction. And the metaverse, it is, in my opinion, just the next iteration of the internet. We had the first, the read-only web, then we had the social web, we had the mobile web, and the metaverse is the immersive web, where we move from, if you want to go on the internet, you have to make an effort. You have to grab your phone, you have to grab your computer or your tablet to an internet that is there, where we are embedded in the internet, where the internet is as pervasive as the air we breathe. And I think that distinction, where you move from going on the internet to being in the internet, is I think fascinating, because it offers a whole lot of new opportunities. And with that, we move from a 2D internet, what we have today, to a 3D internet. And we humans, we are made for 3D. We're not made for 2D. So from that perspective, it's a much better fit for us humans to have a 3D internet, where we can just be connected with the internet all the time, and have conversations as if we have them in real life. And so that I think is just absolutely fascinating. And just whatever can happen in the next 10, 15, 20 years will completely change our society, like redefine our society. So I think everyone who says that the metaverse is a fad because they see crazy monkeys being sold for way too much money, or they see all the scams with NFTs, all the scams with ICOs, or the scams with that we've seen happening in the past couple of weeks. I think that is too short-sighted. It's the same thing as people who said that the internet was a fad 25 years ago. It wasn't, but it just takes time. And I think what the metaverse promises us in the next 10, 15 years is absolutely mind-blowing. And I'm super, super excited about that.
You had such a good line there. Being in the internet versus being on the internet. That's gold. I've never heard that before. Is that a Mark original, or do you snag that from someone?
No, that's a Mark original, yeah.
Really good. And it's so true as well. Like, you don't really think about it, but that's exactly what it is. The metaverse is really you being in the game, right? In the arena, everyone talks about, life's a game. You get to decide what kind of character you are, what kind of characters you engage with, what level you play on, how hard you want to make it, what rewards you get. Do you want to win it all, blah, blah, blah. But like, that's the metaverse. That's it. You're literally in the internet.
Yeah.
When did you coin that? Like, I want to know more about this line. I love it.
I think I coined it a couple of weeks ago when I first when I sort of described that we're moving into an era where the internet is as pervasive as the air we breathe. I don't even think it's in my book, this line, but it's that's when I thought, well, we're actually moving from making a conscious effort to go on the internet by grabbing your phone to look something up, to just being in there and just be always connected with the internet. And I think, the potential that it offers, if we look only back at 2008, when the first iPhone, actually the second iPhone came out with the App Store, the iPhone 3G. From that moment, people started creating apps. And you might remember, they had apps of drinking beer with your iPhone. Where you saw the glass empty. You could play the flute on your iPhone. Those kind of things, which were totally fun and also totally ridiculous if you think about it. But that was 2008. Fast forward 15 years, and we have apps that can do all kinds of crazy stuff. And I think that the same thing is what's going to happen with the metaverse. We have this, very low polygon, pixelated virtual world that not much is happening, not many people are there, and people think that is the metaverse. That is not the metaverse. That's the first apps that are being developed while we are trying to figure out as humans what the metaverse means to us, how we can use the metaverse, what on earth this technology is. And at the same time, it's very early days because the hardware is not there, the software is not there. Just like in 2008 when the first iPhone 3G came out. The iPhone 3G is nothing compared to this iPhone 14 Pro that I have here. I think that we should look at the metaverse from that perspective, because the same trajectory will happen, only it will happen a lot faster.
Very well said. Folks, we're going to keep buzzing on the metaverse, but we got to give a huge shout out to our sponsor of the show. We're going to take a quick break. That is Prime XBT. I've been using Prime XBT for a hot minute as they offer a robust trading system for both beginners and professional traders. Doesn't matter if you're a rookie or a vet, you can easily design and customize your layouts and widgets to best fit your trading style. Prime XBT is also running an exclusive promo for listeners of the Crypto News podcast. Use the promo code CryptoNews50, that's CryptoNews50, to take advantage of this offer and receive 50% of your deposit credited to your trading account. Again, that is CryptoNews50, all one word, to receive 50% of your deposit credited to your trading account. Now back to the show with Mark. One of the things that you talk about a lot, which I absolutely love, is the need for an open metaverse. This is paramount to the metaverse and the metaverses actually being usable. This is paramount for user experience, for governance, for just about any insert trendy word you want to throw into the sentence. It has to happen, but it's not easy. And I wouldn't say it's looking too hot right now. I feel like it's going to be the same as anything else in life. It's going to be centralized, and there's going to be a couple big entities that run the show and own everything. But I'm not the expert in this. You are. Mark, why do we need an open metaverse?
Well, because we pretty much screwed up Web 2. We ended up in an internet which is owned and controlled by a few big tech companies. They have complete control over our digital lives. If they don't like you, they delete you. We can see it happening with Twitter at the moment, with Musk. He's completely turning it around. Not so much for the better, I think. I think that is that's very problematic. That a few people control our digital lives with whatever they're building. And now imagine in the metaverse, the amount of data that we collect will go 1,000 times more than the data that we're collecting today. That data in itself will also be a lot more private, a lot more personal, a lot more intimate than the data that it is today. Your email is very personal. Google knows all about it, reads all about it, has a complete understanding of what your life is about. But the moment we're connecting the metaverse, where we, at some point connecting our biometrics to control our avatars, to verify our avatars, where we, 10, 15 years down the line, where we connect our brains to the internet, which Neuralink is working hard on, and other companies as well. That's extremely personal, intimate, and private data. I don't want that data to be in the hands of the Zuckerbergs of this world. Zuckerberg is not to be trusted. The other day I was reading an article that it stated that in the US, people who file or use several platforms to file the taxes, their tax file information is being sent to Facebook to feed and to train their advertising. So
of course it is.
To me, that's...
Of course it is.
Yeah, but to me, I know it is, but that's insane. We should not want that. Especially with more data being collected and created in the metaverse, we should have full control over our own data, over our own digital asset, and over our own identity. Especially for Generation Z and those born after 95, Generation Alpha, those born after 2010. For many, if not all, their digital identity is as, if not more important than their physical identity. Now let that sink in a little bit, because that's crazy. That your digital identity is as important or more important than your physical identity. If that's the case, you want to have full control over your digital identity. Because if you don't, if you do something that big tech doesn't like, you can lose your digital identity. And I think that's problematic. Of course, with a fully decentralized identity and a fully decentralized system, there are its own problems. But I think in the end, we should have the control over our own data, and we should not be dependent on others.
Again, bang on. Is that going to happen though? Like, do you really think that's going to happen? I try to be an optimist, but if I put the realist goggles on, I just can't see it happening, Mark. I just can't see it. I feel like it's going to be, I don't know if it's going to be Meta or if it's going to be some, Animoca brands. And there's another thing too. All the crypto companies who say they're building a decentralized, fully open metaverse, I don't know if that's going to be the case. It would just make so much more sense from a profitability standpoint to keep things closed and have total control. And it's like anything else in life. The classic tale of becoming wealthy. Everyone's like, oh, if I make 50 mil, I'm going to wrap it up, golf. Like me, if I'm like, oh, if I make 50 mil, I'm going to, make sure that my family and their family and their families are set for life. I'll, be smart with my money, but I'm going to golf every day. I'm going to be a stick. I'm going to be a scratch golfer. I'm going to have a blast, travel the world, blah, blah, blah. I say that, but hopefully when I get to that point, I'm probably going to keep working, because once you taste a little bit of power and money, you want more of it. It's going to be the exact same with the metaverse. If there's one entity that has first to market mover advantage and somehow breaks the floodgates open and users by the millions start being onboarded every day, I just can't see them doing the right thing and being like, we're going to open it up and let everyone, come and have a seat at the table. It just makes sense to close the doors and to run the show. I can't see it happening. I don't mean to be a dick and a pessimist, but because I'm an optimist as well, but I tend to agree with you, and I think that really worries me, because we should not move into that direction, because it's yes, you'll have a few big tech companies who become extraordinarily rich, like even more rich than big tech companies are today, because we'll have 100, 1,000 times more data than today. So that will, from an inequality perspective, will only grow 10, 100 fold. However, I think we should not want that direction, because I think, as I write in my book, if we have a more open economy, that will deliver trillions of dollars for the global society. So as companies, as individuals, we should have a more long-term stakeholder approach instead of a short-term shareholder approach. Now that is extremely difficult, because as you rightly say, if your company is valued 50 million, you want to continue building and hopefully sell it for $1 billion. And then big tech is eating up all these startups, and they give a fat paycheck to the startup founders. They love it, but in the meantime, big tech gets bigger. So we have all these wrong incentives. At the same time, I think another problem is that the general public is not educated enough. We are all digital natives, but we're not necessarily digitally literate. So we don't know really how to understand and how to behave in the digital world and what the consequences are for our actions. And big tech really made use of that, because they,
created all these fantastic technologies, made a really seamless experience, and made it free. So everyone was hooked immediately, and as a consequence, we sort of sleepwalked into a sort of a corporate or state surveillance society that we have today. Now, if we want to change that, what we need education. We need to educate the general public. We need to educate the next generation to change their perspective so that they understand that they can actually vote with their data. Because if we understand that we can vote with our data, then we can make a difference. And then we can say, okay, we don't want Mr. Zuckerberg to control our lives, so let's not use Mr. Zuckerberg's technology, and we move somewhere else. But that's extremely hard, especially because the decentralized exchanges, the decentralized world isn't really very easy to use. If you want to buy an NFT, if you want to drop the NFT in a DeFi protocol to get a loan, to build a business, that's very hard work at the moment. And 90%, 99% of the people are scared of venturing into that because the risk of losing your money is really, really big if you do the wrong thing, which is very easy to do. So we have several problems here. We have the problem that startup founders are being offered fat paychecks for big tech and often find it hard to say no to that. We have the second problem is that startup founders who are building really cool technology often think very short-term shareholder perspective because they are being driven by VCs who want their money back, and often don't really think about the consequence of whatever they're building. The third problem is that we have the general public, which is not very well educated, and I can't blame the general public on that because the technology is moving crazy fast at the moment, so it's very difficult to keep up. But together, these three problems, and the fourth problem is because it's very hard at the moment in the metaverse, in the decentralized world, to build anything. So what will probably happen is the same thing as happened in Web 1. Back in the days when it was very hard to spin up a website, to build an app, to do whatever thing, you had these companies who thought, well, we'll make this very, very easy for you. And, we create a seamless experience, we give it away for free. And as a consequence, we have big tech that we have today. The same thing will happen in the metaverse, where we have companies who make it very, very easy, Epic, Nvidia, Unity, to build immersive experiences. We'll have probably other platforms who make it easy to build all kind of other technologies for the metaverse. And as a consequence, they will be the new big tech. So we have four problems that limit our chances to success of an open metaverse. However, that doesn't mean we should try our best to ensure an open metaverse, because I believe that if we don't end up in an open metaverse, we'll end up in a pretty dystopian future. Yes, we have all this headwind, but we really should do whatever it takes to try to achieve that open metaverse. And that was also the objective of my book, A Step into the Metaverse, to do that. That's why I founded a research institute called the Digital Futures Institute to ensure a thriving digital future for both business and society, because we really need to. And we only have, as I quoted Eminem in my book, we have one shot, one opportunity, and are we going to take this opportunity to do it differently, or are we not? And I think that's the big question.
Tell me more about your fourth book, and it is called Step into the Metaverse. It's a book about an open metaverse, and to gather, the appropriate data and opinions for this book, you did 100 interviews with some of the biggest stakeholders in crypto, blockchain, metaverse, more specifically. You also turned these into a podcast. Pretty smart, if I must say, because now you're just creating a friggin' content machine. Like, it's not bad. And also, maybe I should wake you and do the same. I got 185 episodes. Like, there's a lot of gold in there. So thanks for the motivation. But tell me more about the book and what it's all about.
Sure. So the book is really about what is the metaverse and how can we create an open metaverse. It's meant as a blueprint for an open metaverse. And as I said, I did 100 interviews with the stakeholders building the metaverse. I did another 150 surveys with other people because I couldn't do 250 interviews. It was a bit too much. That really helped me get a really deep understanding of how can we create this open metaverse? What is required to build an open metaverse? What if we have an open metaverse? How will this impact organizations? How will that impact enterprises? How will that impact the public sector? How can we use the metaverse for training, for education, for entertainment, for sports? what are the economics of the metaverse? What role do NFTs play? Because they play a really big role together with crypto. But also, I think very importantly, what are the dangers of the metaverse? Because if we understand the dangers of the metaverse, which will be significantly bigger than all the dangers that we have currently on the web, it helps prepare for that. So it's a full book about, if you read it, you have a deep understanding of what the metaverse is, how you can apply it as an organization, regardless of the business that you're in, but also what are the different points that you need to take into account. As an example, if you're trying to build a virtual community, a virtual world, a DAO, you really need to think very, very hard about the governance structure that you are going to implement. Because what you're building basically sort of a society. It's digital, but you're building a society of people that are coming together, a community that interact. And if you don't think about the governance structure, what is allowed, what's not allowed, how do you interact? What do you do when people don't do the right thing? If you don't think about it in advance, it will become an afterthought, and then we'll end up in the problems just like the problems that we have at the moment on the web.
Mark, you're switched on, man. Well done here. Look, we're getting a little tight for time. We always do a segment on the show called the Hot Take Factory. I want you and I to step in. We put our shit kicking boots on. Give me some Mark hot takes. Can be anything. Doesn't have to be crypto, metaverse, blockchain related. Can be sports, politics, food, geography, space, tech, you name it. Give me a couple of Mark hot takes.
Well, I think my main hot take is that we are living in exponential times, and the world is changing faster than ever before, and it's going to change, and it's only going to accelerate. So if we don't want to be left behind, if you don't want to miss the bandwagon, which by the way has already left and is speeding up, we really have to make an effort. We have to make a conscious effort to understand how this world is changing, how the digital world is changing, and how can we play a part of that. That applies to individuals, that applies to governments, that applies to startups, that applies to enterprise organizations. If we don't have a deep understanding of all these technologies, of ChatGPT, of crypto, of the metaverse, of VR, of Internet of Things, of 3D printing, of AI, etc., we are going to be left behind, because the world is moving on. And if you, as an organization in whatever industry you are in, you don't pay attention to these technologies, you will be disrupted and you will be the next blockbuster. So we have to really educate ourselves and to make sure that we understand what is happening, and we have to do so in ways that apply to our lives, our business, so that we can actually relate to it. I think that is my most important message is, try to understand what's happening, because the world will never be the same,
It's moving quick. Mark, well said, man. Really appreciate you coming on. Before you go, can you please let our listeners know where they can find you, where they can find your new book, Step into the Metaverse, and where they can find more about the Digital Speaker online and on socials?
Sure. So you can find me on thedigitalspeaker.com. I'm on Twitter with the handle @Rijmenam, which is you might want to add that because it's difficult to write. But if you look for my name or the Digital Speaker, you can quite easily find me on LinkedIn. I'm on Instagram, and my book is available on all the big online bookstores, Amazon, as well as some offline bookstores. So please reach out to me. Happy to connect with anyone to discuss these kinds of emerging cutting-edge technologies and how they will impact you personally as well as your organization.
Mark, thanks for coming on, man. Really appreciate this. Learned a ton, and you're a great speaker. No shit. But really appreciate it. Wishing you all the best, and heck, I guess go Netherlands. You guys got a little run in the World Cup.
Yes, we do. We beat the USA, so that's good.
You guys are looking like a wagon. That could be a nice little run.
Well, it could be over tomorrow. This is on Friday, so it can be over in in a heartbeat. But so far, it's going well. But thanks for having me on the show, Matt. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Thanks a lot, Mark. Folks, what an episode with Dr. Mark van Rijmenam from the Digital Speaker and author, 4 times author in his most recent book, Step into the Metaverse. As always, I will include the links to absolutely everything in the show notes. What a great episode with Mark, dropping tons of knowledge bombs for us to the listeners. Love you guys. Thank you so much for listening. As always, keep on growing those bags. Keep on staying healthy, wealthy, and happy. And to the team, love you guys. Thanks again. Bye for now, and we'll talk soon.